So many unbelievable events happen in November. I've been doing this for 10 years and I am shocked at the amount of just extremes that are overwhelming our planet. So I want to take a look at the last month's events, and it's just a fraction of them. You'll be shaking your head at the end of this video as well. Starting you off in Sumatra, Indonesia, a tropical depression, almost hurricane, came through, dropped so much rain in the opposite end of the island that normally gets pummeled by rainstorms. And the flash flooding was, well, what you're seeing right here. It is beyond what the normal is for anything around this region. They've only had this happen once before in the year 2001. Here's your map. The amount of floods that are happening in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, it's not just double, triple, 4 times the amount of rain. We are getting in now to this, not just a year of rain in a day. This is a decade level rain in a single day. This was forecast that we were going to come to a decade of rain in a day. We are starting to see that now. If that does not just make you go, whoa, maybe this is the reason the world's changing so much. Maybe this is why so many forced things are happening across the planet right now in terms of the economy, the governance structure, the jobs, the AI, and everything pushing. And this is happening in the amplification phase right now. I was always saying that somebody knew about these cycles inbound. They knew what the start date was, the amplification, the extreme point, and the apex of the extremes, and how that's going to come down. I think if we're going to run a wave up, and this is a 3 out of 10, what you're seeing here. What we're going to look at in the future is a century worth of rain in a day, according to, well, many a prophecy that are out there. We are at the 3 to maybe 3.5 out of the 10. So much more is to come. Is this the reason they're not repairing our infrastructure across the world? Other areas, they are building it seemingly as a safe area that maybe can transport goods and energy and different raw materials out somewhere to a port, maybe to get us and continue our world? Or are we snapping regional again, where those lines are only meant to work in that region? We'll see. Ryan Maui, I had covered this in a prior video. This is the same system here, 50-mile-an-hour winds, tropical storm. It didn't quite get to the hurricane level, but the track it took, 4 degrees north on the equator, is a very rare start point for a tropical system. They generally don't form around the equator this low. But here's the track. And as that spun, right over northern Sumatra is the area that we're looking at with those initial floods. Came over into Malaysia, crossed over into Thailand, Hat Yai, this whole area. And if you look where it says Storm Senyar, that is the continuation of that storm. But at the same time, if you look to the west or Sri Lanka, Storm Ditwa also went right over the island in a very, very strange pattern. Usually it's not directly over the island, skirting the edge of it. So we had 2 extreme, strange equatorial storms. Not one, two. And they've only ever had 1 recorded before in our modern history. And now there's 2 forming at the exact same time. There's something that is definitely ramped up. Now, will this ramp up continue? I talked about this in my previous video, Planet Breakpoint. Semeru volcano, massive amounts of ash coming down, incredible anomalies. And I even featured this 2001 tropical system that formed similarly, but it was over to, let's say, the east of the peninsula there. This was at 1 degree off the equator, and that whole same system there, that Singapore, Malaysia, southern Thailand area was also hit, but there was a lot more vegetation. There was less roads. You're talking about 25 years ago. So in terms of development, nature was able to soak in and hold a lot of that water when it wasn't this time. Also in that same video, I featured the very first time that we have ever seen circular aurora on the planet. That was that X5 that came in. We've all seen the headlines talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots, but What most people don't realize is that major analysis just found out that people who stopped taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body fights back. This is why, like BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate, and everybody these days is obsessed with weight management results. GLP-1 helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, without needles, prescriptions, or the scary side effects. It also helps reduce hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab a bottle of BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate right now for 40% off only at trimwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you'll receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and the free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithadapt2030.com or click on that link in the description box below to get this deal right now. And as I was doing a little research for tonight's video, I had not seen this orange aurora. It spun by in such an unusual fashion. This was not the North Pole. This was Missouri in the United States. That orange, that is incredibly rare to see such a color like this. Orange is rare, but to see it in Missouri, something's definitely changing with the magnetic field on our planet. Now, a wide view here, northern Sumatra, this is the amount of flooding coming off Copernicus. There's a little area that said flooded area, but that entire peninsula is flooded. So if you look at the map onto the top right, you can see the entire part of the northern island of Sumatra flooded. And this is the aftermath. Look at the size of the trees coming out of the rainforest that were ripped down. People were saying, well, the logging was there and there was not enough tree cover and there was not enough, vegetation to hold from the floods. What I'm looking at here is the trees that were supposed to be the safety point of these types of floods failed. These are very large trees that got ripped up and sent downstream. They're tumbled and, the bark's obviously off, but standing trees, you look at an entire forest that were gouged out by rainfall. And putting it on the scale again of something that just we don't see in our normal world like this. This is once in a maybe 2,000-year event that occurred. Infrastructure's already been ripped apart to the point of, well, the infrastructure that was there was in its infancy anyway. And we're talking about some of the remoter spots, heading up coastal to some of the ports. Like, this damage is going to take years to repair. But look at the height of the water as it was coming through from the forests down into the lowlands. And again, the type of debris, these are not small trees. That is what got ripped up. The entire forest came down with this. And those excuses about, oh, they're logging up there, they're logging, and that's the reason the thing. You're looking at the logs that were supporting and stopping water that just didn't stop it. The amount of water that came down is, I can't even say it's biblical. It truly is biblical. The amount of water. This is not a river from the sky. This is a tidal wave plus a river plus a compressing atmosphere coming down out of the sky. There's not really words to put this thing in perspective here. This blows every single record that we've had for rainfall out of the water. No pun intended. Apparently, the amount of rain that came down had broken all records during this time. And it doesn't make sense for me because it was just a tropical system that bunched up on northern Sumatra. Whatever funneled and squeezed out at that point, you have to wonder if there was an electrical connection that was pushing in on that too. That was very much during the same time that we were having those intense aurora and a highly electrified atmosphere. So you have to go one coming with the other. If we're going to keep getting these X flares coming in on a depleted magnetic field, the reflection is going to be more of that everywhere. Everywhere. Would now be the governments. How would you prepare for this as it ramps up from a 3 to a 10? And how would you protect your continuity of rulership? Bringing whatever wealth. Why is all the gold being moved around the planet? Why is the gold being dispersed pretty much at even points around the planet? And they might tell you it's a BRICS nations reforming, or is it really just spreading out the risk? If you knew the ancient tales, the ancient maps, the ancient legends, and they weren't really, it was just the stories, that you had those records, that not everything in the Library of Alexandria burned. Those records going back from the Library of Alexandria, if you had the section talking about solar activity, cycles on planet Earth, and that section was saved or people ran out with it, you would understand entire ice age cycles, and in these smaller interglacial periods when this magnetic field depletion event would occur, sending us back into another ice age, and the subsequent tremendous upheaval that would accompany that on a known cycle. I think that's where we're sitting today, and that's why governments are behaving strangely and spreading our civilization across points, along with restart of wealth in singular points. So if there is a failure on one continent, it is backed up on another. The bridges. Again, you know, the way the engineering is done, these bridges had been there for, you know, decades, plural. Never, even with large floods, you know, they have monsoons every year. This is and this is after the floods. This is when the water's coming down. Same here. The water's dissipating as the water had come over, and you can see where the debris field was. This is sort of the midpoint of the flood. It had been much higher before, and luckily those buildings survived, but it had been higher than it was. So what we're seeing now is just as it's dissipating. Now here was, as the flood was increasing, you see all the debris on the left side of the bridge there. It just starts piling up, and then the pressure from that, it just can't hold, and then more bridges gone. All right, that's a small little foot bridge, motorcycle bridge, get across there, maybe a tiny, you know, lorry bridge, something real small. Community like that, those communities are going to be cut off. It's going to be, you know, economic devastating event for a lot of these smaller communities that lost bridges. These are just the ones so far where the images and videos have come out. Otherwise, there's thousands of other locations that didn't have a chance to bring their media out yet. But this is just one of, like I say, hundreds, if not thousands of small bridges. And if you look at something large, again, these are engineered to withstand these floods. That thing was built back in it looks like 1910, 1920 era. We have those in the United States too, these railroad trestle bridges. Same thing, like that was a incredibly strongly built bridge long ago, and it just crumbled. How long will it take to replace these bridges is one of the questions. You know, the infrastructure damaged here is going to set them back decades. Just the bridge building alone is going to cost, you know, $100 million to get all the bridges back in place, all the roads washed away, telecommunications, cables, everything. It set that part of the island back tremendously. So what happens in our own modern world if you lose bridges? What if there's a New Madrid fault earthquake here in America and we lose the bridges across the Mississippi? 2 of them instead of 7 or 8 large ones. What if we just lose the one that goes from, say, Memphis over to Arkansas, from Tennessee to Arkansas? That one alone, if that dropped, we would have an economic devastating event that would actually collapse part of the U.S. economy because our trade couldn't move. And subsequently, what if there were further amounts of bridges that collapsed? If you're running goods 700 miles around to go to the same, I can wave at you, go 700 miles around. This is very much the same thing. And I rewind the clock again, back into the early part of the 1900s to find where these bridges were built originally. So how do you find those workarounds? And this is beginning to happen in a lot of places. We've seen these floods, just tremendous floods through the last 2 years that have really amplified to the point of being, wow, it's noticeable. This puts it over to the point of being, wow, noticeable that we've entered a new era. This is a new era entering signal of these floods. Now, as we move over to Thailand, it wasn't as intense as it was in northern Sumatra, but southern Thailand, Hat Yai, Songkhla, these areas are where the floods were. And it came up to At least 10 feet deep, you can see the buildings in the background. That green one's a good idea. That's a single story building. So you can see that it's up near the roof. Anything in front there, also some buildings. And if you think about petrol stations, which that green square outline is, think about going into a gas station and you can see the approximate height of almost every storefront there. And with that, this is the way people were escaping the floods. Now, you notice the rain is stopped ish. So this is getting toward the maximum height of the floods itself. Right there was a temple behind that, but you can see how those people are trying to get around. They're using the wires. Obviously, the power's out, luckily, or else they would have gotten shocked. But to be able to use the electrical wiring across the city to be able to move around now, because, well, if you don't have any floating vehicles, you're not getting around. We've all seen the headlines talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots. But what most people don't realize is that major analysis just found out that people who stopped taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body fights back. This is why I like BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate, and everybody these days is obsessed with weight management results. GLP-1 helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, without needles, prescriptions, or the scary side effects. It also helps reduce hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab a bottle of BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate right now for 40% off only at trimwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you'll receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and the free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithadapt2030.com or click on that link in the description box below to get this deal right now. So the amount of damage here, and I'll take you down the river on a rescue boat here from emergency services. And again, that awning on the bottom, that's probably, a good 9 feet in the air. You're about 10-foot, floors on that. People moving around through the electrical infrastructure to try to stay above the water. And you got to think, all right, this is going to eventually drain out, but how does that much water even stand in an area so large is the question. Like, how much rain needs to come down to the point where they're used to monsoons anyway, every single year in Thailand, enormous monsoons. It floods every year, but not to this point. I'm telling you, we're into the exponential, uptick here of something intense is already here. It's not coming. This is in Sri Lanka, that other typhoon that ran straight up the east coast of the island. These are water drainage canals, which you can see turn into raging torrents. More information will come after that, but they're still in the midst of it. So the cleanup again, some of these countries don't have the best infrastructure, and it takes more than a fair minute for information to come out. So we'll see more videos and damage reports about another week after now. Once the emergency crews can get in there and more people can get out and share information. Right now, everybody's just shocked by the event and huddled down. Just even trying to get out of their houses, just trying to even move anywhere because everything's destroyed. Now, again, they keep saying, oh, it's the deforestation. It's the deforestation. Well, here, this is our deforestation in America. This is the 1910s. Now, if you know anything about logging, you need to do that first cut so you can see where the tree is going to direct in that fold right there. Where that man is, that's the way the tree is going to fall. If he stayed there, he would be in trouble. They haven't even made the cut to make that thing fall yet. So think about the size of that tree. Think how old that is. 1,000-year-old tree, and we just cut them down like toothpicks. And the circumference of that thing is just that's a redwood. And it's unthinkable today that we would even cut something down like this. So if we look on a worldwide basis here, the soil degradation, you're looking at the very degraded soils in the oranges and then the yellows, which is degraded soil. Now, you notice the Amazon basin is very degraded or degraded. I mean, unless they have terra preta down there, I mean, obviously it's just going to be on limestone or whatever kind of organic material falls off the trees every year and is layering on top. As soon as that source of nutrition and compost and biomass stops, then the forest just goes away because there's nothing else to replenish it. So you're looking at a worldwide phenomenon here. Now, a lot of people have associated with ice age onsets. When we come to this point, Dr. Hamaker was probably one of the best ones to take a look at this. He was always talking about remineralizing the soil using granite dust. It shows that there was supergiant forests coming out of the glaciation. And then subsequently, as we get into this 10,000 year period of warmth, we get into this smallest of trees, these forests we have now, degraded lands, and then the cycle starts all over again. Nothing's been pushed or moved around. So the next glaciation cycle shall reset the earth. And if we glimpse at Earth's electric circuit, we can see how that overcharge from these massive CMEs coming in can charge clouds, areas, cause more rainfall, precipitation, extreme storms. And then you add that into what would be the depleting magnetic field on our planet, declining. This is the 2025 analysis. Obviously, the darker the blue is the area with the most weakening. Now, for us, luckily, that's not exactly on a polar area, but that South Atlantic anomaly is definitely increasing. And if it were to then combine into this massive anomaly stretching 2 continents plus in the southern hemisphere, I want you to notice gravity gradients here off of Western Africa, which you see marked in the blue box. Where else do you see another anomaly? Yeah, right over there. Go to the east of that, right over that same area where those 2 typhoons formed that are at the equatorial range, which have never occurred before. Just one is mind-blowing itself. 2 at the same time marks an entirely new system is forming. This is a collapsing magnetic field here. So you can expect everything to just not double or triple in strength, but like 10x, 100x, 1000x. That's what people aren't ready for. And I think that's what governments understand is happening, and they're getting us ready for it. So what do you think ripped the earth here? This is in China, and they call it the Losas Plateau. And this is electrically generated earth rifting. Now we see the Great Rifting Valley of Africa, where we just had some volcanoes. What rips that? That's 1,000 feet wide. Is that coming back is the question. Because if we start to get rips and gouges across the planet like this, what we know is our civilization will be rendered to just very regional areas because, well, nothing survives that. No bridges, no pipelines, no roads, rail lines, nothing survives that. And if it rifts in one way and then it rifts in another, and then we start to get these, even if it's only 100 feet wide, not 1,000, none of our modern infrastructure will survive this. And then you got these twisting vortice auroras that are showing a different energetic flow down onto the top of our planet. This is North Pole. So do you think something's changing and noticeable? Well, if things that echolocate and use magnetics to locate, like this straining up here, which is the Scandinavian countries, the amount of whales coming up right now is also coming into an exponential phase. And at the same time, but this, if you take back and look on the timestamp on the top, this is the 17th of October, about 2 weeks ago. This is record cold in these, what you consider Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland. Anywhere you see that dark purple, that is at the record cold level or beyond, setting and smashing new records. Exactly where those dolphins had rocked up onto the shore. Now, do you think there's any, I say, correlation with that? You got the spinning aurora, you got the record cold, I mean, blowing their records away to smashing cold records. And look how far north it is, and they're breaking those records. Century mark records broken, and then you got the whales ending up in the same exact places. I could say 1 maybe, but 3 overlapping in that same area. Something is wrong. Something's very wrong. And if you want to talk about crustal anomalies, let's talk about the Afar region there in Ethiopia. Volcano that, well, it hadn't erupted in 10,000 years, and here we are again. Now, do you think this magnetic anomaly that hasn't been seen in, well, at least measurable back 12,000, 36,000 years, and suddenly we're starting to see everything related to the crust just start to go haywire like this? It's got to be related. And here's your movement of the ash cloud heading over Oman and Yemen. And this is from a distance to take a look at it. So I also wanted to point something out here. This is an AI generated video. First of all, they're saying it's from that same volcanic eruption in Africa. It's not. It's too vertical. You can see very cleanly the ash cloud was, or that striated ash cloud was below on the layer. And also it's moving way too fast. If you've ever seen real volcanic eruptions, they don't churn like that and so quickly roll in. That way you could tell it's an AI generated. Be careful out there. The stuff's getting really good now. On to Kilauea showing us what it's all about. The pressure under the crust, these silica-rich magma chambers are getting hit by more cosmic rays, which makes sense when a depleted magnetic field is like this whole loop of interplaying sets of amplification events that ride on top and amplify and ride on top. They're interconnected. So cosmic rays hit the silica-rich magma chambers, but the reason we get more cosmic rays is either going into solar minimum or we got an entire depleting magnetic field or both. And then you'll start to see a lot of things like the rifting valleys, perhaps. The Rift Valley actually rifted open further. And with that incredible cold that came down and was hanging up there around the Scandinavian countries for a minute, that ripped down all the way through Spain into northern Africa. And what was the outcome of that? Well, the record snow in Algeria, they don't normally get snow this early. But it gets that really thick, wet snow. We get that in Tennessee too. It stays around for a minute and it's gone. But this is their snowfall. Again, record snow from that polar front that was usually about a month, 2 months early from where they normally get this kind of snow in the middle of January or February. That's it. Months early, record, and also all those cold records broken from all the way up, like let's say northern Norway, all the way down through northern Africa. There's some causation coming and happening here. And then we've come down to South Africa. Look at the hail depth off of one storm. This is Gauteng. Look at the hail depth. This is not normal. Again, these exponential size events, that was and could have been rainfall. So it turned into ice form. Then we move over into France. Their first snowfall of the year, 3.5 to 4 feet. Setting records again in France. We had record cold here in America all over Thanksgiving. Man, there were probably about 500 cold records that were broken during that time. And if you look December 2nd, that's today. Wow. If you go up to the north of that map, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you go down into Miami, 85. So that's quite the wide range there. And staying on to the temperatures here, if we go over to November 19th, oh, look how cold Southeast Asia is. And look how cold China is, too, around Hong Kong, heading further up into the Pearl River Delta. And then look, again, we start to see India, cold across the entire subcontinent. And look at how much cold is across Southeast Asia, heading way up into China. And speaking of Hong Kong, this is the fire. I know a lot of people have seen this before, but it's some of the best imagery that I could. This is spooky, the way you're looking at something like this the day after, and they couldn't get it under control. How is this happening also? I mean, this is infrastructure in a major city on one of the most advanced societies on the planet. I know they're using bamboo, but something's horribly wrong here too, where they're saying bamboo lit all that on fire and bamboo's the problem. And I can't see it as a single cause. Unless you have like really shredded, very fine bamboo, you're not going to catch that on fire, even with a lighter. Like what caused this thing? They're still unknown. It's an unknown. You know, we're looking at something gargantuan inbound here. Whether it be this type of waves that are going to come over and crest. And is anybody talking about, you know, the nuclear detonations, the 2,000 plus that we've done on our planet as a possible causation of sending something off? The anniversary just this week. What was that? Project Baker. Those are all ships from World War II. Different cruisers, destroyers, this sort of thing. Gunboats and the old, well, because they're ancient, like aircraft carriers. And again, I would like you to take the role of the government and understand these changes have now come into the next step up. We're definitely into the next step up of events that is going to occur. Like every event from now is going to be mimicking something of this proportion that's so far out of our context of being able to handle it, we just won't be able to handle it. So how would you as a government be able to control the citizenry? Would you tell them it was coming? I really believe all these are related. The different reports, the different maps, the progression forecast, the linear progression, the exponential there's an enormous amount of data out here to sift through if you would like to. I'm only looking at it from one perspective here of last month. This is all last month. The ongoing depleting magnetic field, that's going to continue indefinitely here. So where does that take our world then? And do you see maybe why all these changes are occurring right now, and what you consider the waking reality of our world, the way it was set, is now just shattered in 1,000 pieces. The shatter belt, it's a shattered world. And all these pieces are swirling, and it makes no sense to anybody why it's occurring. Unless this is occurring, then it makes total sense. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Please share this with your friends and family so we can beat the algorithm and also get everybody else in on the conversation, see what they think, and are there solutions out there that somebody might have that we don't know about. So until next time, bye for now.